let's go back and let's start placing the rocks around the island. There's so many ways of doing so in Houdini, but the cool thing is that our approach here is going to be something really cool. We're going to use a variety of nodes to accomplish that, and for sure that will give you more ideas on how you can use each of these nodes in Houdini. So to start, we have like these almost 3 million polygons on this. So let's duplicate and change the density of the second one to something much smaller, like 0.1. We just want to have the general shape of the island, and that's enough for us. So here we have the island, and that's awesome. What we need to bring now is a grid, and this grid is something, let me bring it here, and let's increase this to 1500 to 1500. Yeah, and you see we need just to cover the whole area, because what we want is the intersection of this line of the water plane with the land itself, and the grid is going to provide us that. So we can bring the grid down a bit, like 1 meter down, just so we have the intersection happening a bit under the water. Maybe not that much, like 0.5, I think it's enough. So let's place a boolean. The boolean, you would normally mix two geometries or subtract or add one to another, but in this case we're going to use in a different way. Instead of the operation, instead of subtract, we're going to use sim. And now we have this line. Let me hide everything else. So we have this line that is the intersection of that grid with the island, and from that on what we need to do is a resample, because we have so many points. Like in here, if I place the points, you see we have a lot of points, and we can resample it, but not to generate more points, but to generate less, like 6. Every 6 meters we have a different point. So that's good for now. Maybe, yeah, that's good. So let's place an add node. That node do a lot of things. In our case, we want to delete the geometry and keep only the points. Okay, so now we have all these points around the island. That's the intersection of our shoreline, for example. That's basically what we have here, representation of the shoreline. So now we have the add, and let's put a point VOP. I want to, it's too uniform, this. So the point VOP is a visual way of writing VAX codes. So for some things, I think VAX is easier. For other things, I prefer to use point VOP. That's a personal choice, but it's a very simple thing that we're going to do. We're going to add some noise to this point. So when I place the point to the position of the point to the position, so we didn't affect anything. It's still, everything has a P that's Z, X, and Y in the world position. So we have like this P, and now we're just bringing this P to the same numbers, so same values. So now let's make like a noise, Antilles noise, and can be 1D, no problem. Let the position to the position, and now let's do a float to vector. The float to vector is good because I don't want to use the noise to bring these points up and down. I just want them to be in the Z and the X axis to be changed. This is the X, Y, and Z. So this, and let's add this. Add. So we're going to add this noise. Oh. We're going to add the noise to this. So, and that's the result. So now we come to the amplitude, and let's make it 15 so we see what we got, and let's increase this even more. So now we're breaking down the whole thing. It's not as we had before, you know, we have like all these points, jagged line around the island. So okay, that's good, but we have too many points, so if we place rocks on here, we would have like rocks all over it, very still like very uniform way, even if we have these points, but we have rocks all over. So what we want to do is to delete, and there's a few ways of deleting points. We're going to do this in two different ways. The first one is to enable delete by range. So now let's see how many points we have. We have almost 600 points. So let me come in here, let me put 600 here, and I want to kill 5 out of 6 points. So we're going to do a lot of points. So now let me see, I think we are not visualizing because there is a bug. Let me erase this and come back to this. Okay, so my mistake. We're looking to primitives, we want points, so now we got. So maybe 5 out of 7. Yeah, I think it's good. Maybe 5 out of 6. Yeah, I think this is better. So now I want to do another thing. There is a new node called align, scatter and align. That's a great node. What we can do with this, we can, this is the surface. So the surface would be the grid, and this is the point cloud. So we're going to bring the point cloud. If we press here, we're going to have points all over the place. That's not what we want. We want to scatter points around constraint points. The constraint points are the points that we generated already. So this is the point. Okay, so now we can have like this radial scale, and let's have it up to 10 meters away from that, and I want to have like this around 6 and around 1.5 or 1.5. This is the minimum size and the maximum size. I want to rotate them randomly 180 degrees rotation around normal. I think can be 0 and 360. Point generation, let's work with some noise here, and let's bring the amplitude much bigger than this. So yeah, we are adding more noise to the whole thing. So now I think we have too many points, so I want to change the coverage to something. Yeah, like something like that. We can change this later, so I think it's okay. So the other thing that we want to do, we want to project these points. Let me show you what I mean. Sometimes it's easier to visualize. So copy 2 points. We have this. The second input is the points, and here's the geometry. Let's put down a sphere. Okay, so later we're going to bring some rocks, and we're going to use this to scatter the rocks, but for now this is what we get. Okay, so let me let's bring back this one, and let's merge this one with this one. Okay, so we have this. Let me clear this. Okay, so now we can see the rocks, and you see if we go under the water, the rocks are just floating there. That's the issue that we have. We have some rocks floating, and we don't want that. Also, what we don't want is the size of the whole thing. I want to give it more like a bigger, to make the rocks bigger. This is a multiply for the general scale, and maybe we can bring more. Yeah, I think I liking this. But you see, the rocks are all floating because the intersection were running around this area, and we distorted with the noise, and so they went further away from the island, but they are just floating. Okay, so now what we can do, we can have like a ray saw. The ray is a very nice node that projects points onto another surface. So here is the points, so we want these points to project, and here is the surface, the collision primitive. So the collision primitive, I'm going to choose this one. We can see the points being projected into the island. See the difference? Let me see. This is the geometry. Okay, let's see with the here. Much better, sorry. Okay, so now we see the points are further there, just projecting everything into the island. So we have some rocks under the water that's going to be visible from the translucency of the water, and other ones are just further there. But we have some that are projecting upwards because it's just closer. For example, a point that was here is just closer to project there, and we don't want that. But I think we have the minimum distance. Yeah, if we place minimum distance, we already fixed those one on the top. Then the other one is that I want to, they are just like in the center of each sphere. They are just placing them in the center. So I want to bury them a bit on the ground. So it's very easy. We can just place a transform node after the ray, and in this transform we can just make like translate -0.5. It's just a bit, maybe even more, maybe -0.8. So now they're buried into the land, and we have this cool setup where we have all these rocks scattered around the island. And of course, when we place different rocks, we can play with the values to make sense of our artistic vision of this. And the other thing is that you see there is rocks in some places that I didn't want rocks to be, like for example this is cool in this area, but I think like for example this beach is okay. I have a few there, nothing too fancy, but if you want you can always come back and delete a few of those that you don't want. I think they look good in general, and we can always play with that later when we place the real rocks. So okay, one more thing, one more step, and now that we have the rocks, we can bring the real rocks in the next lesson, and after that we're going to start scattering some plants. Okay, see you there.